ladies and gentlemen, we're so pleased that you stayed with us here on the Denise Simon Experience. When I got this email about my next guest, I was rather stunned because somebody that I go back a long, long way with, and if I hadn't heard his name but just heard his voice, I would know exactly who that is, and that's Tom Trento. Tom Trento has been one of the longest serving patriots I know out there. It's always on the good side of the fight and stays in the fight. And he's in the middle of a fabulous project that he's going to share with us. Tom Trento, it's so fun to hear your voice, and welcome to the Denise Simon Experience.
Howdy, Denise. We were kind of reminiscing.
Yes.
We got together back in 2012 up there in Tampa. That was amazing.
Oh, and actually we go back further than that, but that was the last time I saw you in person. So, thanks for staying in the fight. And I mean, you know, you're like everywhere, and you know, I appreciate the energy and the attention that you put to things. But Tom Trento, you have got a project going with a bunch of people that I happen to know and have previously been on my show, and that's Defend the Border. And ladies and gentlemen, you can find his work over at defendtheborder.org. Thanks for doing this, and you've got a lot of things that are going on this website. So tell us about this work, please.
All right, the short statement for your listeners who they gotta get out of the house and they gotta go to work. And what is this all about? Basically, my organization is running a campaign with a pass-fail grade on Tuesday, November 5, 2024, to elect pro-border security politicians throughout the United States, particularly the president. So we have a campaign that's very, very cool. And the whole idea is to mobilize Americans in a movement to work on Tuesday, November 5th as the goal to elect people that understand the national security, cultural security, economic security threats posed by the Biden administration's devastating southern border policies. That's it in a nutshell. And in this show, we'll go through all the details, and it's an amazing program with amazing people.
Well, I'll start off by throwing you a little bit of a curveball before we get into the marketing of the work that you and your associates are doing here. I've often thought that, you know, this administration, people like Biden himself, people like Mayorkas, they have a Praetorian Guard. And that includes those over the Department of Justice, that includes those at Health and Human Services, and even the IRS. And I would like to see, so I'm going to put the burden on you, Mr. Tom Trento, pieces of legislation, not that they necessarily go too far, but that it's kind of a warning flag to do a lot of things. And some of these things are to take Customs and Border Patrol out of the agency known as Department of Homeland Security and put it completely in the hands of Texas. And that includes the money that goes with it. Is that a nutty idea?
Well, I've never heard that before, but I don't dismiss a priori any ideas as nutty, particularly when it comes to solving these sort of issues. To take a federal agency, give it to a state by a legislative action from the U.S. Congress would be overturned in the Supreme Court.
Sure it would, but it sends a message, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, let me throw you a curveball.
Okay, I like it.
Having dealt with a lot on the Texas border, there's a lot of very, very serious subject matter experts that have worked for 20, 25 years on the border in Texas that don't give Governor Abbott high praise.
True enough.
They basically say, look, the guy's a good marketer. He puts out a program with no teeth. He makes it sound like there's a lot of teeth, and then it really does nothing. So to put it in the hands of Texas, I understand what you're saying. Do we? I'll rephrase what I understand. Do we need in extreme times you need extreme measures?
Yes.
Do we need an extreme measure by a group, our squad? If we had our political squad in Congress to say, hey, we're looking at this to stimulate the debate, I'd love it. I love debate. I think it'd be great.
Well, I didn't say hand it to Abbott. I just said put it in Texas.
I understand. And look, I am not anti-Abbott. I think he's doing the most out of any border governor, including DeSantis. He's a border governor. You're still in the great state of Florida. We have, guess how many, I'll tell you the answer because very few people know, how many miles of coastline. The largest amount of coastline in the U.S. is 5,000 miles. There is a state in America that's 5,000 miles of coastline bordered by water, and that state is Alaska. The second largest state is not California. California has 800 miles of coastline, but Florida, because of the peninsula, has 1,300 miles. 1,300 entry points of anybody that wants to come into this country illegally from another country. And we have double the amount of illegals over last year compared to 2023. We're up to 35,000 that are coming into Florida illegally, normally on the East Coast, some on the West Coast of Florida. But Abbott is doing the best work out of all the governors trying to secure his borders, and my hat is off to him.
Well, I'm trying to get real creative here, and it generally comes down to money, Tom Trento. And I would like some legislation to remove all of these non-government agencies, the Department of Homeland Security and DHS and Health and Human Services have contracted with, for them to lose their nonprofit status. And I haven't seen that legislation yet. There's been a tiny little bit of chatter, and I'm not quite sure that I'm the one that's doing the chattering, but it really comes down to I would think money and resources, and I would like for the citizens, and I believe in federalism, and for the states to take ownership and get it out of the federal government. We keep hearing that we have a broken immigration system, and I would argue that there are some tweaks that can happen to some legislation, but what laws are on the books today, Tom Trento, are clearly being stretched beyond the spirit of the law, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we have a tripart government. We have a legislative, a judicial, and executive, and we happen to have a split country. So not a whole lot of progress legislatively, which I don't even mind, to tell you the truth. I'm a proponent of taking a year or two off. Why do we need to have a legislature in Washington every single day?
Right.
Let's take every other year off. Everybody goes home and works at home. We keep a skeleton crew for national security emergencies. Another conversation. But your point, which is, how do we maximize the resources, the money, to have the largest impact. I tell you where. I know exactly where to do it. And it's not trying to lobby Congress and get all that stuff done, because we simply have a Senate. There's an effort to impeach Mayorkas now, and there's an effort moving to impeach Biden. Again, they are great rallying points. They can mobilize people, but it ain't never going to happen. You need 16 Democrats on the Senate side to do it. It ain't never going to happen.
Right.
But Denise, here's what could happen. Right now, 75, 80% of the 5 million illegal aliens, that's the legal term in our codified law, illegal aliens, 5 million that have come in from January 21st, 2021 to today through the Biden open border invasion policies, all those words I picked purposely, about 75, 80% of those 5 million have come through nine NGOs, non-governmental organizations.
Mm-hmm.
All 9 are religiously based, 2 or 3 Jewish, 2 or 3 Protestant, and 3 or 4 Catholic organizations. And it's a huge, and these are all hardcore neo-Marxist ideology,
yes,
leftist organizations. And it is a huge, you talk about the cartels, this is the religious cartel there. This is a good term for you to start using. You talk about the religious cartels, they make $10,000 per illegal, bringing them in and saying, hey, Jose, or hey, Abdullah, or whatever a name is from the 161 countries that are people coming in, where you want to go. I want to go to the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City.
right.
Stamp. And then they bill the federal government $10,000 and they ship them off to New York. What a complete scam. They are easier to take down than putting legislation through that'll have any teeth. And they get taken down by exposing exactly what they're doing and having the people of influence turn against what they're doing and either correcting it or saying we can't do this anymore. So that's an Achilles heel of the left that has not been exploited. And we intend to do it if we can get money to do our investigation of the NGOs.
Another piece, Mr. Tom Trento, is that the United States is a member of the SWIFT banking system, which is a global banking system. And I would argue that through SWIFT, we know exactly where all the cartel's money is. And we're not doing a blasted thing about it. And I think I understand necessarily why. Because if we froze bank accounts wherever they may be across the world and with whatever banking institutions, plural, across the world, because the cartels are militant, there would be a full-blown military conflict in Mexico. Is that a true statement?
There is the military conflict going on right now in Mexico. There's 3 warring parties, would be exacerbated
yes.
by a global effort to shut down these transnational criminal organizations, which now are operating about 30 or 40 different countries. People don't realize the Mexican cartels are operating with compliant governments in about 30, 40 different countries. It's big business. So, yeah, going after, you would need the will. Yeah, the United States has the will and the resources. The United States has the resources, not the will, to go after the cartels that way. There's other ways too, but right now there are basically about 4 or 5 significant cartels, and they've lined up into 2 groups for simplicity, Group A and Group B. And both are at war with the Mexican government, either a kinetic war, killing and blowing them up and assassinating, or a war of bribery, bribing them. And then the two cartels are fighting each other for control along the southern border to traffic children primarily, and humans of any stripe. You see, Denise, if you smuggle in, if you traffic, and the difference between smuggling and trafficking for your very astute audience, when you smuggle something, you bring it across the border and you drop it off, whether it's a person or a drug. You drop off the drugs, you drop off the person. When you traffic, you continue to use on the other side that item. If it's a person, you use that person, whether in a sexual exploitation or economic exploitation or whatever. The drug cartels were doing $1 billion with a B dollars in revenue drug trafficking until Biden came in. And you take a 15-year-old little Guatemalan girl, you traffic her over the border, and you take a kilo of coke, and the coke, boom, it's used up and gone. The product's gone. The little 15-year-old girl, that product is used at 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 o'clock at night, and midnight. 4 or 5 times a day. That product brings recurring revenue. The cartels are now doing $13 billion a year, $1 billion a month, not $1 billion a year anymore, in human trafficking.
Sovereign immunity. Another piece of legislation that I think could happen, be introduced or just put out there, and that is removing sovereign immunity from those responsible for the violence and or deaths of U.S. citizens by illegal immigrants. That they would be just as complicit as the immigrant themselves. What are your thoughts?
Well, if you drive up, if you and me, and we get a couple of, our thug friends, and we go, you know what? Money's money, and that bank's got a lot of money. And the 4 of us, I'm driving because I like driving cars. And you go in, and you're you and your gang of 3 others and our 4-person crew. You go in, you rob the bank, you shoot a couple of people, you kill them. I'm outside, listening to the radio. The 3 of you come running in, I take off, and somehow we get caught. But believe me, with me driving, we would never get caught, but that's neither here nor there. You guys went in, you robbed the place, you killed somebody. I get charged equally with the murder of that individual. Yes. Crime. So can we extend this to the propagation of illegal entry? It would be wonderful. It's one of these items that you can bring out in your presentation to start convincing Americans that there is a connection between Sabine Coulter, our good friend, whose son Dominic was killed 13 years ago. Yes. By a drunk driver, illegal, and the border policy. It plays well in winning people to our side, whether or not it could be cooked up in such a way to become a law. Sovereign immunity is very solidly rooted in constitutional law. But again, it's something I would love to see it. And everybody wants to go back to Mayorkas. You have blood on your hands, and he does. He does. That's metaphorical. He doesn't have any physical blood on his hands. Right. But is he legally responsible for the death of Mary because of his policies? I think he is. I think he should be. He isn't at this point, but I think he should be. It'll be a hard case to prove.
All right. Let's, as they say in Washington, D.C., circle back. Let's circle back about the work that you're doing along with so many others, Claire Lopez, Tom Homan, Alan Corman, on Defend the Border. What is the website about, and what is it telling us?
Yeah, the website's about Tom Homan's book that he wrote a couple of years ago after he retired as ICE director, Defend the Border and Save Lives. So our campaign, the Tom Homan campaign, culminating on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, Election Day, is a campaign to defend the southern border, including the borders of Florida, and save lives. It's a fist that is in a velvet glove, wanting to humanely enforce the law and point to our legal immigration policies, defend the border and save lives. It comes out of, Denise, back when we were running around in the 2008, 9, 10s, 11, when I started originally the Florida Security Council to equip Florida to defend itself against Osama bin Laden and all the jihadis. Eventually, our organization became known as the United West, and the mission was to defend the state of Israel, defend the Constitution, defeat Marx, Karl Marx, not Groucho Marx, he's a good guy, and to defeat Mohammed, and we were doing that, as you know very well. You referenced Claire and Alan, and all of us have fought together to go after the jihadis. Well, 2019, this is the background thing. 2019, I took my team down to the border in Arizona, Cochise County. We embedded County Sheriff Daniels, for a week, and he showed us the whole situation with the border. And then later on that year, I took the team to Israel, and we studied border protection as the Israelis do it. And we went to all the borders and saw all their systems. And we were going to bring the integration of the two together in our material. 2020 hits, COVID shuts down Israel for essentially 3 years. I just came back a few weeks ago from 5 weeks in Israel, 2 of which was with Tom Homan and Sarah Carter and Victor Avila and our team, 50 others, on the Israeli borders. But we went there to continue our work on borders from a national security perspective on the southern border. And the whole idea of this campaign is to take the man, Tom Homan, do a movie or a series of shows about his life as articulated in his book, and then we have a man, a movie, and a movement. We're creating and fueling a movement of American patriots to work, starting right now through Tuesday, November 5, to educate Americans to vote for border security politicians, particularly the president, in 2024. So everything we're doing has an educational, political component. The media we're producing and the shows we're doing like this are designed to grab the good Americans that want to return the country to a rule of law, and where they say, what can I do? What can I do? Go to defendtheborder.org, defendtheborder.org, sign up, join with us, and we will put you to work, your capacity, your amount of time, your area of interest, to start helping save America. That's the whole campaign in a nutshell.
What does Congress, Tom, miss in the right kind of presentation and argument when it comes to the southern border. I feel like there's a 800-pound gorilla in the room that everybody sees, but it's still not being recognized or debated.
Yeah, on July 13th, about 3 weeks ago, Congressman Troy Nehls out of Texas, a border congressman, former sheriff, law enforcement officer, former military vet, great guy. He had the guts to host a screening of our movie Death County and the River of Broken Dreams. And Death County is Brooks County in Texas, 70 miles north of the border. And in Death County, we named it Death County, Brooks County. When you go watch the movie at defendtheborder.org, you'll see they're processing dead people, 1, 2, 3 per day, who try to make this trek north, and they simply die for a million different reasons. And the River of Broken Dreams is being sold to the world by the Biden administration. Come over the river of dreams, fulfill your dream here in America. And all that means is, we want you as a future Democrat voter. We're going to make you indentured slaves for the rest of your lives. Come on in, join the Democrat Party. And we're showing that the Rio Grande is a river of broken dreams. Troy Nehls had the strength of character to screen our show at the U.S. Congress on July 13th. Tom was there, Tom Homan, I was there, Claire was there, Claire Lopez. And we had a limited number of congressional people there. Part of it due to Congress was still in session for some late votes, but zero response by Democrats. And we have tried. Democrats view, they have two views. They are, whether they realize it or not, their leadership is neo-Marxist in their ideology. I happen to have a background on all this stuff, and a degree in law enforcement, a degree in theology, a degree in philosophy, and I understand Marxism very well. One of the foundational platforms of Marxism is absolutely no ownership of private property. It's the collective. We're all in this thing together, and we all have to work together, from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. Well, if you take that individual application to an individual whom you make a communist, it's a logical next step to say this applies to countries too. How can a country, who gave a country the right to say this is our border and this is our land and you can't come? Where does that come from? That's the Democrat clarion song saying open borders are a necessity of a moral society. So from a Democrat point of view, they buy into that ill-begotten and flawed logic. And then it's very simple to say, if there should be no borders, then we can invite everybody in. And oh my God, if we invite them in and give them toys and phones and clothes and school and all of this, we're going to own these little brown people for the rest of their lives like we did in the 1860s. This is going to be great. And that's where we're at.
Tom Trento, defendtheborder.org. I appreciate the work. I truly appreciate the work, the team that you've mobilized, and the clarity that you're giving us. So, ladies and gentlemen, please visit defendtheborder.org. Get involved. Tom just laid out a whole bunch of reasons why. If we had another hour, we could probably give you another 50 reasons. Another piece of legislation I'll say that I want to redirect money for climate change and put it at the border, but that's just me. Tom Trento, so pleased that you could be with us. I want you to come back very soon. And ladies and gentlemen, there's more coming your way on the Denise Simon Experience.